Right. Now, after doing the analysis, we need to know what kind of skills would be needed for people for whom we are designing ESP. Okay. So, as I've already told you, that there is a huge difference between teaching of general English and then teaching of English for specific purposes, right? So, Vali is right. Okay. Faiz Batul is saying, also saying something. Most of you have some idea. No, Faiz, this is not true, but we are going to discuss. Now, what I'm telling you is that we have already decided in the very beginning that courses and syllabuses for ESP are very much different from the general English that we teach. Okay. Um, and general English consists of teaching of tenses, grammar, kind of sentences, active, passive, all of that, right? So ESP is different in the sense that we talk about skills that might be needed by a specific group of people for whom we are designing English for specific purposes, right? So metacognition is cognition is about thinking, okay, as Adina said, and metacognition, if we define it in simple terms, is thinking about thinking. Okay, so cognition refers to thinking and in simpler terms, but if we elaborate thinking, it means mental processes. Okay, mental processes in which people engage themselves and the abilities to engage in mental processes, right? Now, cognition is rather, I would say, it doesn't require much conscious effort. For instance, memory. Memory is a cognitive process. Okay, you have a short-term memory and you have a long-term memory. It isn't that while you are experiencing something, you just try to remember it. Okay, those that can be conscious process when you're learning something and you're trying to retrieve something from the memory. That might be a conscious process, but many of the cognitive processes are just happening. For instance, you are always thinking. Okay, as long as you're up, you're not sleeping, you're thinking. That is, cognitive processes are happening automatically. Okay, for instance, memory, learning, um, sometimes decision making. You need to decide, and you process the information and then you make a decision. So some of the cognitive processes are a bit complex, but they are happening as a part of your thinking process. Okay, but when we define and differentiate metacognition from cognition, and we say that metacognition is thinking about thinking, that means when your brain is engaged in complex operations. For instance, it can be problem solving, it can be planning, it can be selecting or designing certain strategies. All of these come in metacognition. Okay. If I give you a simpler example, uh, cognition is when I tell you that you have a paper tomorrow and this is your syllabus. Your mind has processed that you need to study this content and you will have a paper tomorrow. What would be your metacognition? You are going to plan. How would you study? Okay. For how many hours? What would be the strategies that you would make use of while you are preparing for your paper? You are going to reason it. Okay. All of this logical thinking, reasoning, planning, designing, strategically doing things, that is metacognition. Okay. Simple process is you understood that what you're supposed to do, but how would you would do it, that's a part of your metacognition, right? because cognition is almost similar um, for people who are of similar age group, similar qualification, maybe similar level of knowledge. But metacognition may vary because all of you would apply different strategies to do the same thing. Okay. You would reason things differently. Your logical thinking would be different. Okay. Your problem solving strategies would vary, right? So all of these are basically part of metacognitive skills. Okay. As I've already told you that ESP is different from teaching of English for general purposes. Okay. So we go beyond simple cognition and we try to design a syllabus that would cover metacognitive skills. We would do or suggest or provide something to the students in these syllabuses that would enhance their metacognitive skills, because it is the metacognitive skills that would vary for people who would be in different professions, right? um, Now, these metacognitive skills are also connected to the learning theories, and we have so many theories that are given here also in your book. We have read Skinner, behaviorism, mentalism, okay, and then we had constructivist model of learning, right? Creation of meaning. All of these, these are related to uh, metacognition. Okay. Then we also learned about, if you have done psycholinguistics or second language acquisition, you probably remember the affective factors also. And as far as your last course is concerned, where we did Krushen theories, I think we did Krushen theories or Krushen hypothesis. Those are related to affective filters. Okay. So um, it's about learning in an effective process, that you should be taking into consideration all of these affective uh, variables also while you are designing ESP. Okay, how would the learners learn quickly? How can you motivate them? What kind of syllabus or what kind of objective would you design for them, that they get motivated? And one of the reasons for being motivated towards learning um, a course or a syllabus is that it would be useful for them. Okay, if your students find that this is not useful for them or for their profession, of course they would not learn, or they would learn it slow, right? So this is how you take into consideration metacognitive skills. And in metacognitive skills, um, you look for the learning theories also, and you look for of course, as a part of learning theories, there are some effective variables also that you take into consideration while you are designing a syllabus or a curriculum, or choosing objectives for your ESP. Okay, now in the next diagram you can see, if I can just put it here. Yeah, now we can look at this. So language learning, behavior, drills, memorization, error correction, you can take help from all of these. Now this is cognition. Okay, and then this is the affective factors, positive attitude, motivation, and reducing anxiety. We have done this. Someone is saying something. Okay, Yusra, let me check if there are any students. Okay, right. So now one more thing that I would like to tell you, that while we were doing the learning theories, we saw that one method was developed because the previous method had failed along with its theory, for example behaviorism. But basically ESP takes up an eclectic approach. Okay, so you can make use of the theories that are not really supported today by psycholinguists or by theorists of second language learning. But ESP, as ESP instructors, as ESP administrators, as ESP designers, you need to have an eclectic view. And we have already done that in the very beginning, that ESP can also be taken as a method of teaching and learning of second language, and it takes up an eclectic approach, right? So depending on the needs of the stakeholders, learners, administrators, instructors, uh, looking at the time constraints that are given to you, you are going to decide for the learning objective. And for these learning objectives, you can take help from any of the theories. Okay. For instance, if you want your learners to memorize few things, for instance, greeting. Okay. If they are in the hospitality business, you want them to memorize some good greeting sentences. Okay. So what you're doing is you want them to memorize phrases, ready-made phrases. Okay. So you can take help of behaviorism, repetition, drills, so that they can learn greeting. Okay. And maybe you want them to learn how to exit a conversation or how to end a conversation. Then also you can make them learn few of the phrases, right? For instance, if you are teaching them to make slides, here is the outline. Okay, they can always tell on the first slide, and they can always say this, let me now give you the conclusion on the last slide. Okay, so phrases like for example, for instance, all of these can be taught to them through any of the learning theories, for instance, behaviorism. Okay, now after this, what more you need to take into consideration or keep in mind other than the analysis, three kinds of analysis, and the theories that we have just referred to, and the metacognitive skills. There are certain general principles. General means they are applicable to all kind of learning, just not the language learning. Okay, so these are just general kind of principle. Okay, and we are applying them to language learning because ESP is all about language learning. So these are basically general principles. Now some of the principles I would just refer to, and the rest you can just read. Learning is a decision making process. Okay, so it's about the learners. They are going to decide what they want to learn, why are they learning, how would they learn, when and where to learn, right? So you have to take this general principle into consideration. Okay, and this sums up the need of your learners, what they want to learn. Why is very important in ESP. Why are they learning English? And if you are not giving them a syllabus or curriculum or ESP program related to their why, they would not be motivated. They might learn slowly and they might leave the program also, because ESP is especially designed uh, to be very, very useful for a particular group of people, learning for a particular purpose. So when you're not serving their why, or your ESP design syllabus is not serving why should they learn it, so it wouldn't work. Okay, how and when, of course you have to take care when these students would be available for learning. Do they have morning classes, or they are working in the morning and would be available for ESP in the evening? And where would they learn? You need to know the facilities that would be available to you in a particular ESP. Do you have the PowerPoint there? Do you have a whiteboard? Do you have some recording devices to teach? So you have to take care of all of these, right? Secondly, learning is a building process. Okay, so learners apply what they already know. Okay, so they build on something that is already built. It's a continuous learning process. So they will bring to your classroom their own experiences of learning, for example, their first language, and this would always be a part of the learning of the second language. Okay, so what you need to know here as ESP designer is maybe one piece of information would be to know what is their first language. Can you put all the students with a similar first language in one class, or can you afford to teach successfully to speakers of many languages as their first language? Okay, so basically learning is a building process. No one would come to your class as a white slate. Okay, they already have their experiences, they have their knowledge, they have at least one language that is processing in their mind. So what kind of syllabus you should design that would go with their, with least interference from their first language, maybe. Now learning is an active process. So you need to make it as an active process by creating interesting activities, okay, where they can apply their knowledge. They would learn and they would really like to apply the knowledge of English. Okay, learning is a monitoring process. So learners perform better if they notice their strength. Here you are going to take care of their affective factors. Okay, you should recognize their strength. You should know their weaknesses, weak areas in the language, recognize their progress, improvement. You should know their struggles. Then only you can design a syllabus for them that would be helpful for them. Okay, here it's an emotional process. They of course see how useful the syllabus of ESP would be for them. They would be more motivated if it has value for them. Okay, they will learn it faster if they enjoy learning, right? And of course they should have a positive attitude towards the language that you are teaching. They should have a positive attitude towards the material, the teacher, the environment, all of that. So what kind of environment would you create to keep their affective filters low? Okay, right now I'm referring to Krashen's affective filter hypothesis with the assumption that you guys already know this. Okay, so learning is often an incidental process, so things should be really explicit. Okay, and it should give them opportunity to reflect, and they should be able to use the material in their unique ways. It should have practical implications, basically. Okay, so the four after this, after these general principles, what you need to know is what skills would they need. Okay, so basically we have 4 skills, and the focus would vary. Maybe one skill is being focused more as a matter of their need. So these are the sub skills. There are sub skills of reading. You can read it for yourself. For instance, scanning for specific information, skimming for content and meaning, all of these, right? We have done this in last semester, so you just need to go through these. Sub skills of reading, sub skills of writing, sub skills of listening, and then sub skills of speaking. Okay, so in order to develop effective learning objectives, again I'm reminding you that whatever work we are doing with the analysis, register analysis, rhetorical analysis, genre analysis, then looking at the need of metacognitive skills, then looking at the general principles, then taking into consideration the sub skills of the main skills. The aim is to develop effective learning objectives for the classrooms. Okay. ESP course designers and instructor can analyze learners' target language context, identify specific skills and sub skills that we have already discussed. They should be in-class activities, learner-centered tasks, and all of these. So what kind of material? Of course, this would lead to objectives. Objective would lead to material and methods in the form of syllabus. Now, as an activity, before we end the class, I would like you to do this one. We started with an abstract from the field of chemistry, I guess. So you need to look again here at the abstract that appeared in the reflection exercise at the beginning of this chapter, using ideas from register analysis, rhetorical analysis, genre analysis, and learning and metacognitive skills. What learning objective would you include in an EAP? Okay, I would just want you to come with 2 objectives in tomorrow's class. Okay, that was designed to help learners to be able to write abstract that summarize their own research finding. Okay, so I would like you to just come up with 2 objectives. Now, what those objectives should be? Those objectives should be about enabling the scholars to write an abstract, right? So you need to determine, look at all these analysis and what kind of skills would they need, what kind of sub skills would they need, and then you will design just 2 objectives. Okay, other than that, one abstract you have in real. The other task is about imagining that you are an instructor in an EOP, English for Occupational Purpose. The first task is related to EAP, English for Academic Purposes, and this is for English for Occupational Purposes program for air traffic controllers. Now, air traffic controllers are basically giving directions to the pilots, okay, and they control traffic in the air. Again, using ideas from register analysis, rhetorical analysis, genre analysis, and learning and metacognitive skills, list the learning objective you would include in a lesson on pilot directives. Use the following example as a guide on what pilot directives are like. Okay, so this is the language that they use to give directions to the pilots, right? Now, the class is over from my side.